Greetings and salutations. Thanks for clicking on the video. Today I'm going to show you how to configure Samba to share files on your network in your house between computers. And the nice thing about Samba is that it is compatible with Windows Enterprise networks. Now if you're running Windows 7 or Windows 8, then you're going to have to go into your Windows 7 system and you're going to have to tell it how to discover enterprise networks. And that's something that you can look up. It's been so long since I have configured a Windows system to do a network that I really can't tell you how to do it. And not only that, I don't even have a Windows machine to show you how to do it, but I've done it in the past. And today what we're going to do is we're just going to cut through a lot of crap. If you go online and you look up how to configure Samba, you're going to get 19 million different ways to do it, because Samba is a confusing application to work with, even for people who are experts, and getting it to do exactly what you want it to do is difficult. As a matter of fact, I think this is an area that the Linux community needs to work on to make what I'm going to show you how to do easier to do. Instead of having to do what we're going to do, which is we are going to get into the system, we're going to get our hands dirty, we're going to create some configuration files, we'll be working at the terminal, we're going to be issuing commands. So this is something that if you want to set up a Samba server on your home computer, then you're going to have to get your hands dirty, you have to open up the hood, and we have to tinker around a little bit. But the nice thing is that once you do it, it's done, and it's something that you should never have to mess with again unless you reinstall the system. And if you keep cheat sheets as you go along, like I do, then resetting this up is actually quite easy. So let's talk a little bit about what Samba file sharing is. Pretty much every distribution of Linux on the planet comes with the Samba client ready to go, which means that when you open your file manager, that you will see Browse Network. So I'm going to do that right now. When I browse the network, you see that I have a machine listed here called Dell. If it doesn't show up here, check in Windows Network first, and then that will show you your groups that are currently being shared. This is the old home group from when I had Windows 7 machines running. It's still on the router. I could get rid of that, but I do have one Windows machine that I may want to network at some point, so I'll leave it alone. Work group is my standard one. So when I open this, you'll see that I have a machine called Dell. And when I open that, I have two folders here. I've got music and work. Now the work folder is right here. And this is broadcast on the network as a share, and this acts as a server for the entire network. So every machine sees this folder, every machine has access to it, every machine can read and write files to that folder, it can even delete files out of it. And this way it keeps things very, very simple. I know what is shared on the network, and I have one place that I can go to see everything that is shared. When I was doing IT for radio and television stations years ago, I learned pretty quick that this was probably the best way to set up a peer-to-peer network, because if every machine shares a folder, you forget where it is after a while, and you end up going, well, it's not over here, it's not over there. If you have a central server and all of the client machines can exchange files with that machine, you can do everything you need to do. If client A needs to share a file with client B, you send it to the server, and then client B can get it off the server, and it just makes things so much simpler. So that's how I set up my network. So for today, what we're going to do is we're going to pretend that we want to take this virtual machine and we want to make this our server. Now you can run your network any way you like. You can have every machine on the network share folders, whatever you want to do, whatever works for your use case. I'm just saying this works the best for me. Okay? So the very first thing that we're going to need to do is we need to install Samba. And we're going to do that just by issuing this command. And before I do that, let me stop and point something out here. because I need to mention this, is that if you go into Ubuntu and you open up your file manager, and we have a folder called public, which you would assume would be a shared folder. It's not shared automatically. You go to local network share here on your right click menu, and you have this little box that comes up, and it says share the folder. And if you would click that, and then you would give it a name and you would give it a description and click these two boxes, it would become broadcast. A little box will come up and say, let me install the Samba server, and you say okay, and then you get a default setup. The problem is that default setup doesn't share files the way I want to share them. It makes it difficult. The permissions aren't right. If a client machine sends a file to the server, it shows up in the folder and the permissions are not right on that folder. And you open it up and yes, you can read it, but you can't do a whole lot with it because the permissions are wrong. And the way to fix that would be to go into a terminal and log in as the administrator and use administrative privileges to change the permissions so that you own the file. Okay, or you could copy that file from the shared folder out to the desktop. When you made a copy of it, then the copy would become your file and would have all the permissions correct. Either way, it's a big pain in the ass. I don't want to do that. I don't want to deal with that. And so I searched for a long time to figure out how to get it. I just want to share a file, and I want it to show up on the machine, and I want it to be useful, and that's all there is to it. And I'm not crazy about security. I mean, this is my home network, okay? It's behind a firewall. I'm relatively secure, relatively sure that people aren't going to be banging on it to try and get into systems. Okay, so let's do the right command. That would help. Sudo apt install Samba. Double check for spelling errors, because every time I do a video I forget how to type. And we're going to tell the system, and the system went ahead and did it, downloaded it, and there we go. Now Samba is installed and the server is running. And since we're going to be working on the files here, we are going to have to stop the service, because we don't want to be jacking around with the configuration files while the thing is actually doing its thing. So here's how we do that. We're going to stop the service now. The command is sudo service. Did I get that right? No. And the service is called SMBD, and yes, I do have a cheat sheet. And we want it to stop. So now that service is not running, which is cool. Let me clear the screen. And now we're going to get into working on the configuration files. So we're going to cd, and we're going to go into Etsy, Samba. We're in the folder. Let's list what we've got there. And you see that we have some files there. The one that we're really interested in is the file that's called Samba smb.conf. So smb.conf is what we're going to be working with today. First thing I want to do is I want to take a look at that file, because I want to show you what the default one looks like. And when you look at the default file, you see it's rather huge, and there is a lot of stuff to go through here. You don't need not even 3/4 of this to actually run this. This is all security options for big networks and things like that. And we're gonna just kind of we're gonna put what we need in here and nothing more. So let me go ahead and get out of that. And the first thing that we want to do is we're going to have to create a copy of that original file. We want to hang on to it in case what we're doing doesn't work and we need to go back to something. So that's pretty easy to do. We'll use the move command. We're going to move smb.conf to, what help if I would put sudo on that. Okay, and I'm just going to call it smb.conf.orig. All right, so let's see what we did. And as you can see, we no longer have an smb.conf file. We have the smb.conf.orig, which is because we're going to create a new file here. And we are going to do it this way. I'm going to make it real easy for you, gang. Okay, I didn't want to do that. So, all right. So, let's start Nano. And you must do this with administrator privileges because we are working in the Etsy folder, which is a system folder. You don't own this. And we're going to do smb.conf. And there we have a nice, fresh, blank new file. Now I have a cheat sheet here that has all the code in it. So we're just going to copy and paste. So we're going to bring this up here so you can see it. We'll copy it line by line, and we'll talk a little bit about what each line does. The first thing that you need to put in the file is global, because this will tell the system how to run the network. So that's there. Enter. The next line is going to be server string. And this is the broadcast name of the computer. You can put anything you want here as long as it describes the computer that you're on. This is not the host name of the computer. In my case, the host name would be Dell, or the host name of this system actually is Joe-Ubuntu-VM. So we're going to put, we'll just give it a name, VM server. And there you go. All right. So the next line that we need to add is we need to define our work group. If you already have a Windows network up and running, you will need to find out exactly what the work group is that it is in. Windows XP put it in MS Home. You can change that, of course, to anything that you'd like. You can put anything you want into this little variable here. You could call your network, butt nuggets. I don't care. It's your network. Do whatever you want. But if you already have a network up and running, then you're going to have to, if you want to join that group and not create a new one, you're going to have to use that name. In my case, I already have the network up, and it's called work group. So we're going to leave that just the way it is. Yeah, I know that's very, very uncreative on my part, but it was already there, so there you go. And we're going to leave all the security up to the user. We're going to make this so that clients do not have to give passwords or log into accounts to do this. And this is one of the settings that will allow us to do that. Okay, so map to guest. Basically what we're telling the system is that everybody that logs in is anonymous. It's a bad user. They do not need to identify themselves to the server in order to be able to share files. So the system will just see them as anonymous or nobody, and will have automatic access to the network. And that way, you don't have to put in a password or all that kind of stuff. So we're making a very, in some ways this is very insecure, but for a small network, it makes things a lot easier. All right, name, resolve, order. This is just in case you do not have the DNS running already. Most people do. But if for some reason you don't, we just add that in there so it knows what to do with it. Now, do I really know all the nuts and bolts of what that little line does? No, I don't. Almost done with the first file, obviously. And the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to add this line. Now what this line is going to do is that we are actually going to put all of our shares into another file. And the reason we're going to do this is because this way we never have to come and change the actual Samba config file, and we can work on the shared file while the server is running and not have a problem. And then all we have to do is start and stop the service or restart the system, and our new shares will show up. And you could keep different copies of your shared file. There's a lot of reasons for doing this. This is our entire samba.conf or the smb.conf file, the Samba config file right here. And this is all you need to do to get this part started. So we're going to go ahead and save this. And the way you save in Nano is Control and O, write out. Double check the name there, that's what we want it to be, and the answer is yes. So we've written the file. Now we will exit out. Let's double check that our file got in there and everything's cool, so I'm going to ls. And there's our smb.conf file. And we can just double check what it's doing. We'll just run a cat on it to look at the file. I'm a little paranoid. I want to make sure it's saved properly. And there's the contents of the file, and everything looks good to me. All right. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to create our shares. And so we're going to create a new file. And we're going to call this SMB. Let me double check this here. Shared dot conf. And there we should have a nice clean file to start with. By the way, you can name that file anything you want in the include statement. So you could go here and you could say right here, include a file called elephants, and it doesn't make any difference. It doesn't have to be called smb shared.conf. It's just more logical that way. And what we're going to do is we're going to create our first share. So here's what the share looks like right here. And we'll do them one line at a time here so you can understand what's going on. So the first thing is, in brackets is going to be the name of your share. And I'm going to go ahead and paste this in. I'm going to change this to something else actually for the purpose of this video. So we're going to call it public. All right. And then we need to force user. It's the next line. What this basically does is that anybody who logs into the shared folder, the system is going to assume that it's you. And that way they won't ask for a password. So tab and paste that in. And then of course we need to set a path. And just to make my life easier, because I'm not the world's greatest typist, I'm going to go ahead and copy this in. So tab, paste, and all I'm going to do is change the name. It'd help if I could type. Okay, there's the public folder. We're sharing that. Next line. This is actually a very simple variable here. We're just saying whether we could write this or not write this. And I'm going to leave it on yes. I'm going to put it on yes. That way people can read and write to the folder. Now, if you're sharing like your music folder, great example, you probably don't mind having other people or other computers get into it to be able to play your music, but you don't want anybody to be able to delete your music or change it or edit the metadata on your files or something like that. So if you make that no, then the answer is going to be no, it's not going to work. And when they try and delete, write, you can read it, but you can't write to it, okay? And that's a good thing to keep in mind. Of course, for a public folder or a shared file folder or whatever you call it, we want it to be able to read and write. And the very last thing that we need to put in is a public statement. And what that is going to do is it is going to basically tell Samba to advertise this on the network so people can actually see it. And after that, we are done. So Control O, check your title there, make sure it's okay. Your file name, it is. X, and we are done. Now, before we move on, we need to check that all of our files are going to work. And we can do that with one simple command without having to restart the service or restart the computer or any of that stuff. So we're going to test parm and all of that output indicates that everything is okay. It didn't give us an error anywhere. So we're good to go. That will actually work. So to share the file on the system, you could restart the whole computer, or we could simply restart the service. Oh! Let me do that again. It listed the file there. Let's see, sudo service smbd start. There we go. Now we should be sharing on the network. Well, how are we going to find out? We'll go ahead and close this. And I will open up files on this machine. Now let's browse the network. And there is the machine, the share that we just set up. So let's open that up. This might take a second to do. By the way, I have to give credit where credit is due. Try that one more time. I have to give credit where credit is due. The person who I learned how to do this from was Jay LaCroix. Now, Jay has a great YouTube channel, and he has videos for intermediate to experienced Linux users. And he's the one who came up with this system. Okay, I'm going to restart this machine. Okay, gang, through the magic of editing, you just missed about 15 minutes of troubleshooting I did to try and figure out why this network wasn't going to connect. Because I actually tried that 3 or 4 times. I reset the router, and I was going, why isn't this working? Well, it turns out that when you're doing this in a virtual machine, that you must change the settings from NAT to bridged. If you don't do that, then the router doesn't know what to do because doesn't see the virtual machine as being a different computer than the one you're on. And I realize that's probably over a lot of people's heads, but most of you will probably be figuring this on a real machine, so it doesn't matter anyway. But if you try and do it on a virtual machine, there you go. And as you can see, we actually have a file in the public folder here, and we're seeing it over the network. And go back and browse the network, and here's what it looks like, the broadcast share. So it's working fine now, and I can go in here. This is the shared folder. I'm doing this over the network, and well, let's just well, here I'll create an empty file, and as you can see, it shows up over there, and then I can go in here and delete it. So we have full two-way control over that folder over an entire network, and all you need is an SMB client to make that work. So thanks for watching the video. I hope this helped. I realize that it's probably not the most concise or best way to explain how to do this, but it is the best way that I know how to do this. And so what we're going to do is, as I say goodbye in this particular video, I'm just going to put this file up on the screen here. And make it pretty big there, so you can actually see what code goes into it. Remember, this top part here goes into your smb.config file, and this part goes into your shares. And to create more shares, just copy and paste and give them different names. You can share any folder that is on your computer that you have access to, and it will work perfectly. So thank you for watching the video. Comments, suggestions, always welcome. I didn't mean to open that. I was trying to click on this, but it's actually behind the microphone and hard to see. So anyhow, comments, suggestions, always welcome. Thanks for watching, and don't forget that if you would like me to help you get started in the world of Linux, check out easylinux.com. The link is in the description below the video.